In time, you will know what it's like to lose.
Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Today we're going to be giving you 3 different builds for our Stamina Necromancer, Thanos. The first build is going to be one that I've been playing in Battlegrounds recently and running around Imperial City. And this is a build that does not utilize Eternal Vigor. I know Eternal Vigor right now is best in slot for a lot of different builds, and I've been using it on a lot of builds, but I wanted to kind of see what else was out there during this new meta finding period. And so what we're doing is we are running with 2 different sets. So let's jump right in. First thing to look at is we are running a mythic item on this. Now currently I do have Malekith's Band of Brutality. However, you could put Pale Order here or Ring of the Wild Hunt. I just happen to have Malekith's Band here for that additional damage. My crit value on this particular build is so low that I'm not going to be critting much anyway, so I might as well throw Malekith's Band on there and get higher damage output. So that's the way we went. Now when you run with a mythic item, it usually breaks up your monster set unless you're running a front bar back bar setup. And we are not running a front bar back bar setup on this, and so that's what it did. It broke up our monster set. So we are just wearing 1 piece of Cross, and that's going to give us additional pen on this, and it is in medium. And then the next set that we have paired with this is going to be Champion of the Hist. Now if you do not like Champion of the Hist is a heavy armor set, so if you wanted to switch Champion of the Hist out with Eternal Vigor, you absolutely could. You'd lose some weapon damage, you'd lose 2 lines of max stam, and you would lose roughly about 600 health on it. But you'd gain 800 health recovery when you dropped under 50%, and you'd gain a bunch of recovery. So it's all up to you and your personal playstyle and where you're at right now. This build from a recovery standpoint has been working out real great for me because your heavy attack thumps, it hits really hard just by itself, let alone your blast bones hitting people and your D swing. So we'll look at those tooltips in a little bit. Now this set, when you look at it, that 5 piece, gain minor heroism at all times while you were in combat, generating 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. Necromancer, as you know, has very high ultimate costs, and so if you're saving for the Colossus or saving for any of the Necromancer class ultimates, if you're saving for Pestilent Colossus, you can see that's 225 ultimate. Now the tooltip unbuffed right now is a pretty darn good tooltip, okay, and it applies major vulnerability, which is great. You can see that this ultimate is 250 ultimate, Ravenous Goliath, and so if you're utilizing the Necromancer ultimate, class ultimates, you'll be sitting on your ultimate very long. Now I am actually running with Berserker's Rage, and there's a reason for that. We'll get to it after we discuss these last sets. But the thing about this minor heroism while in combat at all times, when you're doing Battlegrounds and anyone in your group, if they're out there and in combat, you will also be in combat. And the way you could tell that is just go to your character sheet, and if you've got a red outline around it, like you're up in base, they're down there fighting, you'll actually see that you're listed as in combat and your ultimate is growing during that time frame. It's important to know that because you can get very high ultimate amounts on this if you need to, and we'll talk about why that's important through our champion points. But Champion of the Hist, the next set that we have paired it with is going to be Titanborn. So we are the Mad Titan, we're Thanos, and so we're going to wear Titanborn Strength set. And you can see the 2 piece gives us almost 1500 physical pen. The 1 piece is weapon damage, and the 2-piece gives us 1500 physical pen, 3-piece gives us almost 130 weapon damage, 4-piece gives us almost 1100 max stam, and then the 5-piece add another 110 weapon damage and 1240 physical pen. This bonus doubles to 220 weapon damage and 2480 physical pen when you're under 75% health. This bonus quadruples to 440 weapon damage and 4960 physical pen when you are under 50% health. Here is why, and I did this before on our Spartan Unleashed. When we had Spartan Unleashed and I used Titanborn, I wanted to know how I could slow the death process, right? Especially right now, damage is pretty insane during this new meta. Right now, damage is very high, and if there's a way for me to be able to slow the death process, to be able to capitalize on Titanborn, I wanted to figure out what it was. And so you have a couple different options to do that. Number one is going to be Berserker Rage. Unbuffed, you can see strike an enemy with a vicious blow, dealing 14,415 physical damage to them and all nearby enemies. This attack ignores the target's resistance and grants you physical and spell resistance equal to the amount ignored from the initial target for 8 seconds. Now, basically on this build, because I'm running around, say, 25,000 resistances right now, and I hit this on another medium armor wearer, and let's say they don't even have the resistance I have, they only have 20,000 resistances, it's going to be true damage. It's going to bypass their resistances and hit them hard, but it's also going to steal those resistances. So in that moment, I've now got 4,500 resistances, 45,000, sorry. If I have 45,000 resistances, it's going to be very hard to penetrate, get me below resistance cap for those 8 seconds. And that's going to slow the death process. I'm going to be ultra tanky for those 8 seconds. And if you've ever used this ability, you know that to be true. Like when you use this, you feel stout, okay? And so I thought that was a good way to go on the build to slow the death process and to really capitalize on Titanborn at the 75 and then 50% health mark. Now, if you don't want to run this and you want to get some more damage, then run Dawnbreaker Smiting, and there's some passives that give you additional weapon damage on that. However, killing people on this build has not been a problem. Sustain hasn't been a problem on it either. So, again, looking at the sets, we are running Champion of the Hist, Titanborn, One Piece Cross, and Malakath's Band. Here's a couple stats on this. We have 25,000 penetration on this build, okay? And let's look at that real quickly here. Now, when we just buff up, when we look at our character sheet, we're at 8,900 penetration. When I summon a Blast Bones, I gain 1,500 more penetration on top of that, okay? And because I initiate a fight on someone, I'm going to gap close to them and I'm going to hit them with Pierce. Pierce is going to do 8922 resistances, okay? It's going to apply major and minor breach to them, stripping those resistances through major and minor breach. So, gap close to them, hit them with a Pierce. They're now short 8922 pen. I've got a Blast Bones up. The Blast Bones hits them. I've gained 1,500 extra pen while the Blast Bones is up and getting ready to hit them on top of my other pen. So if you were to take that and add it to the bonus at the bottom, this bonus quadruples to 440 weapon damage and 4960 physical penetration. So the 4960 additional pen there at the bottom, plus our Pierce, plus our Blast Bones, and then our base pen that we're running around on our sword and board bar, equals just a couple short of 25k pen, okay? So currently, when we go through our rotation, just like I said, a lot of medium armor people, we will be full penning on them. They'll basically have no resistances against us. It's for that reason that this ultimate, as opposed to the other version or the other morph, is the better option. We're already probably going to be overpenning on a medium armor build right now. So there's no reason to run with the other morph. Why not run with this one that strips their resistances and makes you even more stout? And you can see at the very bottom of this too, you are immune to all disabling snare and immobilization effects. So you can't be stunned, rooted, or anything for the full duration of this. That gives you time to kill, okay? So it's been working out really well. Okay, let's look at some of the stats on the build here. We're not completely buffed up, but you can see our recoveries. We're at 18 stamina recovery. Health recovery is 3,200. Magic recovery 993. Weapon damage 5,798. Our weapon damage actually goes up because we have a weapon damage enchant. And the weapon damage enchant, our weapon is Nirn honed. As you see, the weapon damage enchant is 348. Now if you were to add 15% onto the 348 for the medium armor passive, that ends up taking the weapon damage enchant to roughly about 400. That it equates to about 400 extra weapon damage. And then Titanborn, if once we hit 50% health with our Titanborn, we gain an extra 440 weapon damage there, and that ends up being 506 when you add the 15% to that. So if you take 5,798 plus 400 and plus 506, you come to 6,704 weapon damage. So our burst window, when we initially gap close to someone, pierce them, and then switch to our two-hander and hit them with the D-swing medium attack or D-swing heavy attack as the blast bone hits, we'll be spiking at 6,700 weapon damage during that time frame. And if we're our base pin will be in the ballpark of 16k. Our top end pin, if we fall below 50% health, will be around 25k. So very dangerous build the lower we get in health, and so that's very cool. Again, let's jump in and look at this buffed up. We're going to look at some tool tips also, and then I want to show you the new CP. Now we have the CP allocated here. D-swing, almost 13,000 D-swing. Blast bones, 15k on that, and then we've got 16k on our two-hand bonk, and that's pretty nice. We are running Executioner. If you want a little bit more splash damage, switch that to the other morph, and that's great. And let's look at 22,000 health coming in. This is just the base morph. I need to continue to level this up, but 22,000 health coming in over 12 seconds, and then while slotted, your healing done is increased by 3%. That is redunculous. Let's look at this back bar abilities. Their heals. You can see that our vigor has a 20,000 tooltip on it. That's great. And then we're getting 2,553 health every 2 seconds from our spirit mender, and we get a flat 10% damage mitigation from this, and that's great. So the food that we are currently using on this right now, Food and Mundus, if you want more recoveries, like I said, you could always switch to Eternal Vigor if you want, or you could change your Mundus Stone to the Serpent. Right now I'm running the Warrior for more weapon damage. Seems to be working out just great. If I felt like I needed more stamina recovery, I would switch to the Serpent. Or if you want more pen, go to the Lover. I don't think you need more pen on this build, to be honest, though. We're already over penning on some people. The food that we're using is Artaeum Takeaway Broth. It's max health, health recovery, max stam, and stamina recovery, and that works out great. You don't have a lot of magicka expenses on our healer is a magic expense, beckoning armor is a magic expense, and that is it. So our magicka for the most part stays pretty high. Let's look at this. Right now we're running 2 heavy, and then we're running 5 medium. Okay, so this is a 5-2 setup, 5 medium, 2 heavy, and these two right here you just switch out for Eternal Vigor. Something else to note, you can see that my enchant or my traits are all over the place. I just don't have the transmute crystals to fix all of this. But let me tell you what I would do. I would definitely make the chest reinforced. If you look at the difference between a reinforced chest, okay, so your chest and legs are considered your bigs or your most valuable armor slots, and your helm as well if it's heavy. But let me show you the difference between a reinforced heavy and not. Reinforced heavy, you can see the armor is 3215 on the top left. Impen is 2425. That's a huge difference. That's a huge difference. And I can tell you right now, everybody feels fairly squishy. Like it's hard to get your resistances high unless you're going with like fortified brass or things like that that have armor built into it, or a monster set with armor pieces, with armor in the one piece. So I think the way I'm going to go for this meta, unless something changes, is my bigs are from now on going to be reinforced. Okay, and then I'm going to run probably Impen on the other ones, just that way so the Night Blades don't completely blow me up. But anyways, reinforced on your bigs and Impen on your other ones. So what else do we need to look at here before we jump into the CP? Spell resistance just under, we're on our two-hander right now, just under 24k, and then when we go to our back bar, see we're at 26, just under 26k on those. So for most medium armor builds, that's probably where they're at, between the 20 and 25k right now, depending on what set you're running. Like a medium armor fortified brass would obviously be higher. My crit resistance is fairly on the low at 1500, you know, almost 1600, but a lot of people are going to be running lower crit resistance right now, unless you're running impregnable. So, and let's talk about the health recovery when we look at the CP. Let's dive into that. Okay. I can tell you this, that the turning point for CP, my CP for this build and the next build is going to be the same. So if you watch this in its entirety, you don't need to watch the CP for the next build either, okay? So anyways, here we are. The turning point is about 1200 to 1300 CP. Very first thing I do when I come into the green tree, unless I'm a sneaky Nightblade, the very first thing I do is I come over here to Steed's Blessing, and I put 50 points into that. And that's going to give me 20% additional movement speed outside of combat. I'll go ahead and drag and drop that, slot that right up there, okay? So these are the slottables, these are slottables, and the ones that are a little bit more dim are just passives. Like you put points into them and you'll get whatever that effect is, but you don't need to drag and drop it and slot it, okay? So that's the very first thing I do. Then the next thing is, on most builds, I know that I'm probably going to want War Mount and probably going to want Gifted Rider, okay? So what I would do, and I'm still working on getting this up, I felt like these were more valuable to me. I wanted to make money. But anyways, mostly because I don't spend a lot of time in Cyrodiil, so my mount speed doesn't matter. I'm running on foot everywhere I go. So there that is. But there's not, for a lot of different classes, unless you're a Nightblade or a Crafter, there's not a lot of things you need to worry about option-wise here. So it makes this a slottable that you should probably get. This becomes a slottable that you should probably get. And then you're going to decide between these. And so I just went with Treasure Hunter. If I happen to find a treasure chest, I want to increase the quality of the items that I find. And so you work your way up to those. Okay. Anyways, those are the slottables. War Mount, increase your mastery and mount movement, removing all stamina cost outside of combat. Great. And ultimately, this is going to reduce my or increase my mount speed by 10%, and this increases my movement speed by 20% out of combat. And that's all movement speed as well. So, and those are my slottables for the green tree. Let's move on. Blue tree, if you haven't seen this before, this is where it starts to get a little tricky, and you need to kind of know what you're gonna do. Let's talk about those items that I have slotted first, and then I want to call attention to a couple things. First thing is I have Untamed Aggression, and because I have 50 points in that, I have plus 150 weapon and spell damage. I slotted that up at the top. Next thing I have is Wrathful Strikes, and that increases my weapon damage by 165 and spell damage, and I have that slotted. Next thing is when you deal direct damage, you heal for 7% of the damage done. Almost everything I do is direct damage, and so in that moment, basically all the attacks that I'm doing are also healing me for 7%. That's great. And then I went up here to increase your damage done with single target attacks by 2% per stage, and so I have a total of 10% additional damage to all of my direct damage or single target attacks. So my D-swing, my execute, and I'm not sure if the blast bones can. I'd have to look at the tooltip to see if that buffs it more than that. So let's jump into these. You see these purple trees here. These are very important. This right here, my crit chance is so low because I don't have a lot of points invested in this, but you have to minimum put 10 into that so you can reach these up here. So anyways, this right here, as soon as you click on the purple one, it goes to here. And I've got 1400 additional offensive penetration, so my attacks hit harder. That's helping with all the extra pen that we have. And then increase your chance to apply a martial status effect by 60%. So we're going to apply that minor defile, no problem on targets. And then I get an extra 100 weapon and spell damage to martial attacks. So you see our physical, poison, disease, and bleed damage is increased there. So that's important. So we've got 110 points there, and then here's another purple one. We'll go into that. You can see I got 40 points into quick recovery, so my healing taken is increased by 4%. And then I've got reduce the damage you take from magical attacks. Because we are wearing 2 heavy, for each heavy piece that we're wearing, we're taking 1% additional magical damage. And so basically now we're taking 2% less magical damage just by putting this in there, so that's going to work out really great. And so that's our 80 points, an extra 4% healing taken, and we're offsetting some of the magic damage that we're taking by having 2 heavy armor pieces in there. And as far as working on things, we're just going to continue to dump points as we grind CP or achieve more CP. We'll put it into Blessed for healing done, so our healing will ultimately get up to an extra 4%. And so healing taken, healing done, those are basically, you know, they stack on top of one another. You know, you're doing 4% more healing and you're also receiving 4% more healing, and so it ends up being like additional 8% healing to yourself. So that's good by heals that you initiate. This is how we have CP set up here. Anyways, again, Wrathful Strikes, Grieving Blows, Deadly Aim, and Untamed Aggressor. Okay, here's why our health recovery breaks 3000 health recovery on this build when we're sitting on our ultimate, and it's because of Strategic Reserve. Now, if you're playing a class or your play style, you do not sit on your ultimate, you use it as soon as it comes up, don't go this route. Okay, there's other things that you could do that are better than this, but for me this has worked out because I'm able to kill people without using my ult, and I really just sit on my ult as a burst or defensive measure if I want to kind of tank down. This is working for me. If I didn't go this route, I would probably come over here to Survival Instincts, and while afflicted with a status effect, your core combat skills cost 5% less. This gives you a total of 25% cost reduction to dodge, roll, block, and break free. Those cost 25% less if you have a status effect on you. The likelihood that you have a status effect on you is very high unless you're running a cleanse, which Necromancer has that in its kit. I'm not currently running it, so if I decide to come off this, I'd go with that. So slottables right now: Strategic Reserve, Bloody Renewal, restore 300 stamina per stage. So I get 1500 stamina every time I execute a player, and then there's 2-hand passive that I get that additional stamina back as well. This is just a passive, I don't need to slot it, but I got an extra 1120 health, and Right here, this is another passive, and this one is reduce your elemental status effects applied to you by 25%. The duration's reduced by 25%. Tumbling, reduce the cost of roll dodge by 360, so which is good. I'm wearing 2 heavy armor pieces, so anything I can do make the roll dodging a little bit less. And then reduce the cost of break free by 440. That's great. And then here's our last 2 slottables. Rejuvenation gives me 150 health, magic, and stamina by slotting it, and I'm trying to get more armor on my medium armor setup. So now we are a Nord, so we get the 2600 additional armor from that, then we get the 1730 armor from this, and that's how we're hitting 25,000 resistances, 26,000 resistances, and most medium armor builds are near the 20k resistance mark, so that's good. Makes us feel a little bit more tanky. But anyways, that's how we have it set up, and I do have points over here which are passive points. Reduce the cost of block by 80, and then we're putting points in to increase the amount of damage you can block, and right now we're 4% block mitigation and cap that out. So, and the reason for that is it's important to know that our back bar is block cast capable. Like while I'm holding block, I can summon my Mender, I can hit my Vigor, I can put my armor on. I can even, if you didn't know this, you could hold block, and while blocking, gap close to a target, and you won't be stunned during that time frame. So everything on my back bar is block cast capable. Looks like they might have changed that actually, now that I say that. You used to be able to hold block on this and actually pull the move off without dropping your there it is. Yeah, sometimes he drops the sigil, sometimes he doesn't. I don't know. Weird. Anyways, that's the build I've been running in Battlegrounds. CP Imperial City, and you could duel on this if you want. It shouldn't be a problem. If you want to run more recoveries, like I said, change from the Warrior Mundus Stone to the Serpent, and this is good. We are running prismatic enchants on everything as well. Like I said, just change your traits out to the reinforced on your bigs, and then your smalls will be impen, and you'll be able to push more impen on this. Like we are a little bit on the low here. You want to get this to about 2k right now, and it won't be as bad for you. So that is that. Hang out for a second. We're going to come back with our another build. This is a no proc Cyrodiil build. And this is what I'll be running when I am out in Cyrodiil for the next 3 months. Thanks.
Run from it. Destiny still arrives.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Grimsforge Gaming. Now we're going to cover our no proc set Cyrodiil build. This build's going to work out just great for this next 3 months out in Cyrodiil, and let's jump right into the build. So right now you know that you can't run monster or 2-piece monster sets. You can only run a 1-piece of the monster, and you can run 2 separate. And then there's a list of certain armor sets that work and don't work out there right now. And a lot of 5 pieces are not functioning on builds, so go find that list if you don't already know it. But this is going to be the setup that I am running for no proc set Cyrodiil. First armor set that we're going to run is Impregnable, and you can see that I have this reinforced, and I think reinforced is probably the way to go if you're going to run Impreg, because the 5-piece on Impreg gives you an extra 1630 crit resistance. This build does feature 3200 crit resistance, and on a lot of people right now they're really struggling to hit the 2k crit resistance, and we've got 3200 crit resistance on this build. But when you run Impreg, you don't need to have the trait Impen. You can run with something else, and so I've actually ran with Reinforced to get more armor value out of this piece. We are 2 heavy, 5 medium on this, and I think that's important to know. So the one-piece monster set that we are running is Kraz, and this is in medium, and this gives us additional pen. This build's total pen is over 20,000. It just barely breaks the 20,000 mark on penetration, but that's really nice. So, and we like that one piece. Now, if you want more armor or you want to go a different route, change up your monster set. It's completely up to you. And the next set that we have paired it with is going to be Spriggans. And you can see Spriggans, we've got Spriggans reinforced, and that's going to give us max stamp, 2 lines of max stamp, some weapon damage, and then we've got additional pen down at the bottom, 3,400 pen. Okay, and then down here we hit the one-piece bonus for Ring of the Trainee. Okay, and that's going to give us an extra 1,400 health. Now, only one of my jewelry is infused, okay, with weapon damage. So if you want to get another 200 weapon damage, 250 weapon damage out of this, you would want to infuse both of those. Right now, I'm just keeping them as max health. I like where our health is at right now, at 30,000, and we feel very tanky because our resistances on this are 28,400. Okay, the 28,400 on a medium armor build feels very nice right now. Plus we have 3,200 crit resistance, and our weapon damage will be at 5,500. I do need to add a weapon damage enchant on this, and that weapon damage enchant will break the 5,500 weapon damage mark. So let's look at things buffed up. Oh, again, real quickly, reinforced is the way to go when you are wearing Impreg. There's no need to go much higher over 3,000 crit resistance. If you want to, that's fine, but you'll get more value going a different route, and so I went reinforced. Okay, go reinforced where you can. And then these 2 things were in pen, and I don't have transmute crystals to change those, but I would just do reinforced on everything. And you see we have the prismatic enchants as well on everything. Let's buff up here. On our 2-hand bar, you see our recoveries are 1,800 stamina recovery, our health recovery is 3,200, and just under 1,000 magic recovery. On our 2-hand bar, we're at 24, just under 25,000 spell and physical resistance, and our physical pen is 9,600. Our pen actually goes up the ways that we increase our pen. Number 1, we summon a blast bones. That's going to give us an extra 1,500 pen, which will take our pen to 11,106. And then the way I initiate fights is with a gap close to a pierce, and pierce is going to apply major and minor fracture, reducing their armor by 8,922. So if you were to add the 11,106 penetration to the 8,922, that would take you just a hair over 20k pen on the build. We chop through people. 20k pen right now out in no CP, or sorry, not no CP, but well, you could take it no CP, but 20k pen in Cyrodiil with no procs right now is a lot of pen. Plus, we're in this new meta. I think everybody was used to having medium armor builds and being able to break 30k resistances, and the game is not there anymore. So 28,400 resistances is very strong. It feels very tanky, especially for a medium armor build. Looking at our back bar, 28,401, 28,401, 3,200 crit resistance. That's great. So this feels very good. 30,000 health, 30,000 stamina, 15,000 max mag, and we don't really need the max mag for many things on a Stamcrow. Just like with the first build, we are running the Warrior. If you want more stamina recovery, change this to the Serpent. Warrior seems to be working just fine for me, and if I need to, I can do a Blast Bones into a heavy attack, and heavy attacks return stamina and also thump very hard. So that works out very well. We are running Artaeum Takeaway Broth. This food has actually worked out very well for us. It's max health, health recovery, max stamina, and stamina recovery. We don't really have a need again for max mag on this build. Reason being is our Spirit Mender is a magic ability. You can see how much that moves our bar, hardly at all. And then our armor buff and that's it. And by the time we need to reapply those, we're back at full magicka anyways. Now, if you wanted to switch an ability out or switch something out and run Race Against Time, you'd still be fine with your magicka in that moment. Okay. A couple things that I would change up. From the first build, I was running Berserker's Rage. Now, Berserker's Rage is going to have you basically bypass their resistances and strip their, it'll give you their resistances. So you, in that moment, you're going to be at armor cap and very hard to kill. If you don't want to run this, I would switch to Dawnbreaker Smiting, and there's a couple passives in the Fighter's Guild skill line that will increase your weapon damage even more. Dawnbreaker Smiting gives you a conal damage, you know, and it's about 10k more damage than this. Let's look at the tooltips real quick too before we talk about a couple of those things. We got an 11,000, almost 12,000 tooltip on our D-Swing, 13, just under 14k on our Blast Bones, 20,000 heal from a Restoring Tether, and then just under 15,000 on that. You can see, I think that this actually goes up. Let's double check this here. $17,650 on our Vigor, and then we've got 2,500 coming in every 2 seconds from our Spirit Guardian, and gives us a flat 10% damage mitigation. So that works out really well. You can run a couple different things on this. If you wanted to run Colossus, you could, and the tooltip on Colossus is going to be great, and it's going to apply major vulnerability. So if you're doing group play or defending keeps or taking keeps and you want to throw this on, by all means do that. It's no problem. So whatever you want to do. We are a Nord on this. We get an extra 2,600 physical and spell resistance. We do gain ultimate as we take damage, and we got more max stam there, and we got more max health and frost resistance. So it's been working out really well on our Thanos. And so anyways, this is the build that we would run in Cyrodiil during the no proc testing. So all of these armor sets are approved. You can run a one piece of that, no problem. You can run this, no problem. So no CP or no proc Cyrodiil. You can run it in CP or no CP. That's that build. Let's jump into the champion points. Champion points are the same as the first build, so if you watch that, you could just fast forward to the next thing. And what I do is I recommend that you actually watch the CP from the first one, because I'm going to give you the abbreviated version, but we actually break down a little bit more in the first one. I'm just going to talk about what we have slotted. Right now I have Steed's Blessing. It gives me an extra 20% movement speed. I've got Treasure Hunter, increasing the quality of items you find in treasure chests. I'm still putting points into Gifted Rider, and ultimately that'll be an extra 10% mount movement speed. And we have War Mount. And so anyways, those are our slottables. And then as far as passives, we have a handful of passives that work out really well. Here we have Wrathful Strikes. It gives us an extra 165 weapon damage. We have Untamed Aggressor for an extra 150 weapon damage. We have Reaving Blows. All of the direct damage that we do, we are healed for 7% of all the direct damage that we do, and that works out really well. And then we have Deadly Aim, which increases our single target attacks by 10%. I have 40 points into Piercing, 40 points into Battle Mastery, 30 points into Mighty for an extra 100 weapon damage there. And then our mitigations, we have an extra 4% healing taken, and then we have 4% additional magic resistances. And because we're wearing 2 heavy, we are a 5 medium 2 heavy in this setup. For every heavy armor piece, you take 1% more magical damage. So 2% of this is offset by our heavy armor. So basically we only have plus 2% magical resistances, but that's fine. So anyways, that's that tree. We do have some other passives here that you don't need to slot, and you just gain the effects of them. And we'll keep working on those as we gain more CP. We've got 50 points into Bloody Renewal. Every time we execute or kill an enemy target, we're going to gain 1500 stamina. This is a great form of sustain. We've got Strategic Reserve. This is why our health recovery is so high, and we haven't invested any armor sets into health recovery, and we're just aiding it with our food that we take. There's some health recovery in our food, but we're still breaking the 3k health recovery, and so every 2 seconds we got 3k health recovery coming in. That adds to our tanky feeling. Makes them hard to chop us down. We've got 40 points into Hero's Vigor for an extra 1120 max health, 50 points into Mystic Tenacity. So anytime we have a elemental status effect on us, the duration's reduced by 25%. Slottables though. Rejuvenation, we've got an extra 150 health, magic, and stamina recovery, and we've increased our armor here by 1731. So if you didn't want to go this route, you already felt tanky enough, you could switch that and you could go with more max health, or you could go with Survival Instincts. And Survival Instincts, when you have 50 points in this, it reduces your block cost, your dodge roll, and your break free, which are all considered core combat skills. It reduces those costs by 25%. And so if I were to come off of this 1731, which I think Sinville Duck said that equates to like 4% damage mitigation, something like that, 2% damage mitigation, you might want to go here and save yourself on some cost reduction. And then I do have passives over here, reducing my block cost by 80 and increasing the amount of mitigation by 4%. So that is the CP for that build. This is the No Proc Cyrodiil build, and it features 20k pen, 5500 weapon damage, 3200 crit resistance, and 28,400 resistances. So alright, thanks. Stick around for the last build. It's going to be Anthris 3.0.
No one is my equal. Nothing does it. Obey me. Fun isn't something one considers when balancing the universe, but this does put a smile on my face.
All right, here we go. Welcome back. We're going to jump right into Anthris 3.0. This is a Stamina Necromancer tank build, okay? The goal of this build is not to kill a bunch of people in battlegrounds. It's Chaos Ball, capture the relic. It is to be able to wade in the middle of the chaos and stand your ground, okay? Damage is high out there right now in this new meta, okay, during Flames of Ambition. However, this build is extremely durable. All right, so this build features 10,100 health recovery. It features cap resistances, and then we have a lot of different damage mitigation built into this through the abilities that we have slotted and the CP and the way we have our champion points set up. So if you saw Anthris 2.0, and there's a lot of people waiting for this build, you know how durable Anthris 2.0 was, and it didn't even feature nearly half of the mitigations and the health recovery that this thing features. So let's jump right into the build. First things first, we are running Beekeeper. This is going to be a 7 heavy, however, do not worry. We know that you're going to take more magical damage, but with all the different mitigations that we have, you're not going to feel it too bad, okay? So Beekeeper is the first set. You can see it's a bunch of health, and then it's the 5 pieces, 900 health recovery. And we are set up on Impen on some of the items, and then we are set up on Reinforced on the others. And the reason we have Reinforced on certain items is so that way we hit our resistance cap, okay? And by hitting our resistance cap, our second set, which is going to be Alessian, we're able to hit that health recovery bonus down at the very bottom, current bonus, and we will hit the 1320 when we buff up. But you can see 2 pieces armor, 3 pieces armor, 4 pieces max health, and then the 5 piece increase your health recovery by 2% for the sum of physical resistance and spell resistance up to a maximum of 1320. We do hit that on this. Let me show you very quickly. Well, we'll show you here. Yeah, we'll show you right now. There you go, 1320. We just barely squeak in on that. This is pretty optimized. Now we could afford to get gold this out a little bit, and we could gold this out, and that would take our resistances up a little bit more, and might be just slight overkill for it. But you can see up here we are running Troll King, and I think that I deconned my shoulder Troll King heavy armor. So you'll have to forgive me. I'll have to save some transmute crystals and reconstruct one. But when Troll King, you can see here, once I get my second heavy, I get my shoulders, heavy shoulders, it says 925 health recovery when I fall under 50% health. And so let's do the math here real quick. When you take 925 health recovery and you add 30%, when you pop a potion to it, that's going to end up being 1200, just a little over 1200 health recovery. Okay, so let's look at the health recovery on this build. Popping a potion, you can see that we are at 8,900, a little over 8,900 health recovery, and if you add 1,200 on top of that, it takes you to 10,100 health recovery. You could get even more health recovery if you wanted by golding these out. We are running infused on all of these with health recovery, so if you wanted to gold these out, you could squeeze out some more health recovery there. And then there's a food. If you wanted to change the food that you're using, you could do that. We are running the Steed Mundus Stone, which features health recovery and some movement speed, and then we've got Bewitched Sugar Skulls, which has health recovery and at 393 and then max stats. I think you need to be on Bewitched Sugar Skulls, but there is another food that the other food actually has, I think, 500 health recovery, so you could probably hit 10,500 health recovery or something silly like that, who knows. But honestly, this health recovery feels really good, and almost passively we're almost at what Anthris 2.0 health recovery was at, so it's pretty silly. Yeah, 10k health recovery build. Okay, let's look at the stats here real quick on this, and we're gonna explain some things. Cap resistances, you can see that crit resistance is a little bit on the low at 1700. That's no problem though with the amount of health recovery we can have coming in. Stamina recovery at 1100. Excuse me, that works out just fine for the way we play the build, because we're able to channel a lot of heavy attacks right into a scythe, and then we're piercing and we're setting up kills for our team. So we're debuffing enemy players, so in a PvP atmosphere. Now on Anthris 2.0, I was able to tank the hardest trials and the hardest vet dungeons in the game. I could face tank them. So like Bloodroot Forge, when all 3 of the big bad bosses at the very end are marching around, I could literally just stand in front of them and face tank them on Anthris 2.0. So there's no doubt in my mind that we could do it on Anthris 3.0 when we have that much more health recovery and all of the damage mitigation that we have built into this. Let's look at the damage mitigation. First thing, we've got Spirit Mender. This thing's going to heal us. It's a smart healer, and it stays up for 16 seconds, which is great. It's one of our few magic costing abilities on it, so we'll always have the magic for it. And then you see it's, while active, 10% of the damage you take is transferred to the spirit. So we got 10% damage mitigation there. We've got another 10% damage mitigation here through major protection. As long as there's a corpse on the ground to consume, we're going to have health coming in, and we're going to have major protection for that duration. Then you also see, while slotted, your damage taken is reduced by 3%. Okay, so between these two things, we've got 23% damage mitigation. Doesn't really work that way because of the way it's not additive versus multiplicative, but just for the sake of argument, we'll say 23% damage mitigation. We do have some heals coming in. here as well. And another important thing is at the bottom, while slotted, your healing done is increased by 3%. So all three of these things are healing you. This is healing you as well, and that's great. And you can see at the bottom, the healing of this ability scales off your max health. So when we go into Goliath, look out. The amount of health that we could recover just swiping. And we are running Ravenous Goliath too, so it's got a magic AoE damage, and we have fully charged heavy attacks restore health. So our offensive kit is a lot of fun to play. So if you look at the back bar, we do run Executioner. Basically, if somebody's low and we want to start applying pressure, as soon as they hit under 50% health, I'd say probably they've got 30% health left or 40% health left, I might start switch over and go to this. We are running Expunge and Modify. It'll remove 2 negative effects, and then it's gonna restore maximum stamina and magicka. This is really nice in battlegrounds because there are still proc sets around, and this is nice in Imperial City. So I mean, you can get negative effects on you in Cyrodiil right now, even though it's a no proc set meta as well. So you'll be able to take some stuff off of you. Flex Spot if you find that you don't need it. We are running Resolving Vigor. If you decide that you don't want this, you could put Spiked Bone Shield here. That's a fun ability. Or you can move some things around. Anyways, a lot of this is flex. You do need this. I like Beckoning Armor. If somebody thinks they're going to hit you from ranged, a sorcerer, a bow ganker, or someone like that, this is going to pull them into you and put them into the mix. That's great. We are running Rally for a little bit of a burst heal, plus we get the minor endurance, so our stamina recovery is increased by 15%. This is a flex spot. I'm currently running Berserker's Rage. However, I'm already at, like, when we buff up on this, we're at resistance cap, and so maybe Dawnbreaker or Smiting might be the play. Maybe you want to run Pestilent Colossus and help your team out. That's honestly probably the play, is to put that there. Now, what I find myself doing is sitting on my ultimate. There's not a lot of, unless I'm taking a metric ton of damage and I need to save myself and I'm going to hit this Goliath form. But when I'm not having to hit Goliath form, the way I have my CP set up, we have a lot of extra health recovery coming in from that. So let's jump in and look at the champion points. Our champion points system is set up differently than Anthris 2.0. Obviously, we've got a new champion point system, and also our champion points are set up differently than the previous 2 builds in this video, so you'll want to pay attention to that. This is the same. We're only going to talk about our slottables, and everything else you do whatever you want. But slottables right now, Steed's Blessing increased my movement speed out of combat by 20%. War Mount, which removes all mount stamina cost outside of combat, and then I'm still putting points into this, increasing my mount speed, so my mount will move at 10% more. And this does stack it's all movement speed, so when I'm mounted, my mount is very fast. So anyways, and then the last one I have is Treasure Hunter, increase the quality of items. Green Tree's the same as the other 2 builds, nothing special there. This is where it gets tricky. First thing we want to look at, let's go right here. Actually, let's talk about our slottables very quickly, okay? And then we'll go there. Reduce your damage taken by single target attacks by 10%. That's good, because D-swingers, any type of single target attack, the damage reduction is going to be cut by 10%. And keep in mind, we also have major protection, and we also have our Spirit Mender cutting costs on attacks on us too. When you block an attack from an enemy within 7 meters, you deal 4,800 physical damage back to the attacker. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. And so everything on our entire kit is block cast capable for the most part, and we have a lot of block cost reduction as well. So we're going to be standing there holding block. The only time we're not holding block is when we're channeling heavy attacks to get stamina back in the tank. So this is going to return some damage to the attackers. That's cool. Next thing is reduce your damage taken by 10% for damage over time. So reduce your damage taken by damage over time attacks by 10%. That's good. In Cyrodiil right now we have no procs, but in BGs and Imperial City we do have that going. And occasionally if you decide to stand in bad stuff in the stand in red in the game, most of those are damage over time, and this will reduce that by 10%. When you begin bracing, you gain a damage shield that absorbs 5100 damage for 3 seconds. This effect can occur every 10 seconds. This does stack with the Psijic Order shield as well. So if you wanted a shield between the both of these, and when you hold block, that's pretty cool. Now, let's jump into here. You can see that we have 4% additional healing taken. We have 4% reduced magical damage received. We have 4% reduced martial damage received. We have an extra 528 crit resistance, and we receive 8%. Reduce your damage taken from non-player attacks by 8%. So basically, dungeons, NPCs, things like that. I don't know if this applies because this is a new CP thing, if this applies to Siege, but if so, that's great. So we got a lot of points in there, and then we've got 40 points into Tireless Discipline for some extra stamina, and then we are starting to put points into Piercing to increase our penetration on this build. Now if we wanted to come off of that, not worry about pen, I'd go over here and go into Blessed, and actually we would probably, we're just going to do that. Jump in here, we're going to take those points back, we're going to jump out of here, and we're going to start working our way toward. Makes more sense on a tank, right? So that's a lot of damage mitigation. Okay, that's a lot of damage mitigation, not counting major protection and our Spirit Mender on our bars. Now let's go to the red tree. First slottable. While under the effects of a crowd control immunity, increase the amount of damage that you can block. Okay, so our block mitigation in the moment that we are on CC immunity, so I get a hard stun and now I'm CC immune for 6 seconds. For 6 seconds, my block mitigation is increased by 10%. Okay, I'm blocking 10% more. Now, let's say hypothetically at the end of the 6 seconds they hit me with a slow, a root, and a mobilization, and I break that. Okay, now I got another 3 or 4 seconds of mitigation. This applies there too. So this could drag out to be something in the 7 to 8 second window of additional block mitigation. Works out really well. We also have Strategic Reserve. Gain 30 health recovery for every 10 ultimate you have. This is important because our ultimates are very expensive. Also, we're so darn tanky and we're mitigating so much damage, and we have so much health recovery coming in that we find ourselves sitting on our ultimate and in turn gaining more health recovery. So that works out great. Down here we have Juggernaut. While under the effect of crowd control immunity, you take 10% damage reduction. So not only when we're on crowd control immunity are we able to block more mitigation or block more damage, we also have a 10% damage reduction. We have 10% damage reduction here, plus the 10% for major protection, and our Spirit Mender is reducing 10% of our damage received. Very interesting. And then up here we have Rejuvenation. It just gives us an extra 150 health, magic, and stamina recovery. Now if we wanted to squeeze out some more health recovery, we could come right here. Increase your magic and health recovery while under the effects of a crowd control immunity. So we kind of have that crowd control immunity. If we wanted to, you know, get this, I think this goes up to what, 40 per stage, and there's you know, I get an extra 200 health recovery right here. But anyways, let's look at our passives now. Okay, break free is reduced by 440. We're putting points into reducing dodge roll, which is important. We are in heavy armor, so we have higher costs. And reduce the duration of elemental status effects applied to you by 25%. That's important. Increase our max health by 1120. And we do have a little bit of points here into sprinting, movement speed, and basically that just enough to get us over here. Reduce the cost of block by 80, and then our the amount of damage that you can block is increased by 6%. So extremely durable, extremely tanky, a lot of mitigations, a lot of health recovery coming in. Just comes down to there's some flex spots on the bar. Run your favorite tanking setup as far as abilities on a necromancer. I can tell you that this works well for me, this setup right here. I can secure some kills because I'm in the fight a lot. I can channel heavy attacks, I can apply pierce to the targets, and we're just heavy attack, scythe, heavy attack, scythe. I have a lot of health coming in between my tether, dead in pain, my spirit guardian, my rally, and my vigor. A lot of heals. You might say I don't need that much heals when I have 10k health recovery. Well, start whittling down some of those abilities and start adding some of your favorite tanking abilities on there. I don't care. Like, it's completely flex. You can do whatever you want. Okay? So that's the CP on Anthris 3.0. 10,000 plus health recovery, cap resistances, and you saw all the different damage mitigation that we have. It's crazy. So everybody be safe out there. Take care.